Alright guys, EZA PHY Turles is in Dokkan. We don't have him with any dupes in, only at 55%, but that's okay. We get to see what he does at a bare minimum. However, we do have him at level 10 links with some skill orbs on as well. We don't, however, have him on a full 220 plus lead. But we do have a Dokkan Fest Metacooler army friend and a pretty stacked team regardless, especially with the two side EZAs that have dropped as well to go with him to give him a helping hand. So we are starting with a 453k attack stat, 476k defense. We do have a few links active, the main one being Big Bad Bosses, which you always want to get as close to, if not at level 10, and then Thirst for Conquest and Fierce Battle. So not too many links active. We are missing out on a bit, especially with like Brutal Beatdown and also Destroyer of the Universe. However, we do have some, as I said, important links active nonetheless. So, in terms of his first turn appearance, don't forget, when there is another Space Traveling Warriors category ally attacking in the same turn, which both Cooler and Frieza are, he does have 70% damage reduction for one turn before attacking. So right now, he's got 70% damage reduction because of the Space Traveling Warrior units. And then 20% damage reduction that he has in base. So he's going to have 90% damage reduction in slot 1. We don't actually lose any links. So we're going to see how he does in slot 1. Now, of course, SSJ4 Daima Goku isn't fully boosted yet because we're not past turn 3. I think it was turn 4. We get an extra 100% attack. However, Turles does still have types advantage. So that damage reduction is going to be working overtime. And of course, double digits on normals. How are we looking on a super attack? Not fully juiced up, but again, type disadvantage in slot 1. 447, which, do you know what? I don't think is too bad. And he's starting with a 29.1 million attack stat. He is greatly raising attack by 50% and then raising defense by 30% for one turn. He does also recover 6% HP when he supers as well, which again isn't a lot. However, if he does super attack quite a few times, which Turles does have the possibility of doing, you could build up a solid amount of HP purely from supering, and then combine that with any same type orbs you pick up and heal with any of the 3 units on your rotation. It could eventually add up, you know. So we're up to a 35.8 million attacks that we super attack like what, 4 times, I want to say, 1 additional normal. So we're not doing too bad. Not only that as well, because we did trigger their entrance animation because we're facing a Goku's family or Pure Saiyan category enemy or a Kid Gohan at the start of the character's attacking turn, which, I mean, you'll be facing a Kid Gohan who's also part of Goku's family regardless, but either or. We are giving Extreme Class allies Key +3 and 18% attack and defense permanently. We do get that once, but it is stuck here permanently, which is nice. But as I said when we were going through his details the other day, at least it's not something important. You know, it's not something like where we're missing out on something key like damage reduction, guard, dodge chance, or a decent amount of stats like 100% attack and defense or 200%. It's a very minor, subtle support, which of course Turles does also benefit from because it doesn't say self-excluded. However, again, it's not a detriment to his kit. It's not something he really needs. So if you don't trigger this, I mean, there are a few Goku's family or Pure Saiyan enemies currently in the game. So there are some events you can take on where you can trigger this. It's not overly restrictive at this current moment in time. But as I said, it's not something that's a detriment if he doesn't get it. It's not a necessity to trigger in his kit. Is Frieza gonna be okay? We might die. No, we're alive. Just about, but we are indeed alive. So he does also start with 200% attack and defense to also go with the base 20% damage reduction he has. And then, of course, which we did have, he does have HP at 50% or more. So he did have the extra 100% attack, 150 defense, and did have a 70% chance of an additional super, which he did get one of those because, of course, one of them was a normal. Now, in terms of this rotation, how much healing we get in here? All right, it looks like we're going to get a fair amount of healing. Of course, I am going to rotate these two off. You are Days, or is it Days? I always forget how to say these names, man. These side piece, side dish characters, coleslaw, beans, side salads from the movies. I think it's Days and Cacao. If it's not Days, then, well, it is now. that's all I'm going to say. You know, your name's now Days if it isn't. And then when attacking with 12 or more ki, which of course we also did, Turles does gain 150% extra attack on top, which I don't see you ever not really attacking with 12 ki unless you're specifically in a stage where the enemy does decrease your ki and you don't pick up 12 ki, which means of course you're not supering. Then of course you won't get it. But it's not going to be often that does happen. Dokkan don't really do too many of the enemies in the game at the moment. He does also have another additional which has a 70% chance to become a super attack, and then has a guaranteed additional super when your HP is at 50% or less when you attack with 12 more ki, which of course, if we keep our health where it is right now, we could actually trigger that guaranteed additional super next turn, which, while he may not be putting up the biggest of numbers right now, with Turles super attacking anywhere from like 4 to 5 times potentially, overall, I think it's going to be another one of those cases where his damage may look a little bit misleading. You know, there is a 50% attack raise each time. Again, you're looking at potentially anywhere from 2, 3 to 4 super attacks minimum upward. And then combine all that damage together. I know it doesn't fully work like this, but if you combine all that damage together, let's just say, you know, just under 30 mil, then you got like a couple over 30 mil. You're easily reaching like over 100 mil in terms of like combining the numbers together before you actually factoring how much damage Turles could be doing, especially with all the crit chance he gets along the way as well. So while he may not be putting out like super high numbers on his initial super attacks and doing like 60, 70 plus million on his first super attack and doing like 70, 80 on the second, and then that's all he really does, maybe a third at a push, he's doing multiple for, yes, a lot less, but kind of near and nigh that same amount of total damage, if that makes sense. So don't overlook his damage too much, especially with how low it starts, because he does get there. I mean, speaking of the amount of super attacks, Days and Cacao, they are on smoke right now. They've done like 9 billion super attacks and decided, you know what, I'm going to dodge absolutely everything. But since we do have Almond and also Raisin, Mr. Testicular on the team, let's quickly point out what they're going to be doing, which of course they do give Turles quite a few links. More importantly, Destroy of the Universe and Brutal Beatdown. So Turles is currently sitting on, Jesus Christ, that is off of one appearance. Not that he really builds anything up too much, but that's off of one appearance. And then also their links and support. This is another reason why these side EZAs are so good. Number one, they're just good to begin with. And they're great additions to Space Traveling Warriors and Terrifying Conquerors. Don't forget they don't go on movie bosses. But also, the support they give out as well. So Almond and Raisin, because they are on rotation with Turles, they start with 250 attack and defense. They give Planetary Destruction category allies Ki +2 and 40% attack and defense, which goes to Fizz Turles. Then the additional Ki +1 and 30% defense and a chance to crit by 15% for characters who also belong to Space Traveling Warriors, which also goes to Fizz Turles. And let's not forget as well, Days and Cacao also give all allies Ki +2 and 30% attack and defense for 2 turns when there is a Planetary Destruction category ally attacking in the same turn, which I'm pretty sure this caller is, right? Yeah, he is. So that Ki +2 and 30% attack and defense is still going on in this turn, with then having Almond and Raisin for their 1-turn support, which means in total, EZA Fizz Turles is picking up not only just, how much is that there? It's 40% attack and 70% defense and Ki +3 with 15% crit chance from Almond and Raisin, but then the extra 30% attack and defense and Ki +2 from Days and Cacao from the previous turn, hence why his stats look so juiced. But then also, for 1 turn from entry, these guys are getting 25% damage reduction in slot 1. They get an extra 20% on top, along with guaranteed guard and an additional guaranteed super attack with 4 or more orbs obtained. If you put them in slot 2 or slot 3, they get an extra 200% attack with a guaranteed additional super, have guard all attacks as well, but only 10% damage reduction, and you do need to pick up 4 or more orbs to get that. Whereas in slot 1, the damage reduction is not only 10% more, but you don't need to grab orbs in order to get it. And then when attacking, they do get 150 attack, and then whenever guard is activated, so whenever they get hit, which of course, slot 1 or slot 2. However, slot 2 or slot 3 is conditional depending on if you get the orbs. Guaranteed in slot 1. When their guard is activated, you can get 50% attack and defense up to 200%. So literally, once they're hit 4 times with their guard active, you're good. And then when there was another planetary destruction category ally attacking in the same turn, which of course Turles is Metal Cooler a planetary destruction category ally? I don't actually remember. I'm not going to lie. He is not, but however, it doesn't matter because Turles is. They get another 20% damage reduction, and along with an additional 20% damage reduction when there is a Space Traveling Warriors category ally attacking in the same turn, which of course both Turles and Cooler are. So right now, if we pop them in slot 1, even with 485k defense, which of course we will build up once they get hit, they've got 25% damage reduction on their first appearance. They've got guard with then 20% damage reduction, so that's 45% damage reduction right now. Then, because we have a planetary destruction category ally in the same turn with Turles, that's another 20% on top in general, which takes them up to 65% damage reduction, and then the additional 20% for a Space Traveling Warriors category ally in the same turn, which takes them up to 85% damage reduction with guard on a sidebanner unit with juicy support, which makes Turles on crack. So we're going to leave it set up like this for the time being. Of course, after that first turn entry, that 25% damage reduction is gone. So that means they do drop down to 65% damage reduction, but that's still pretty good, especially on a sidebanner unit taking 6k on their first appearance from Goku, by the way. Again, I know he's not juiced up just yet, that's next turn, but still, a sidebanner EZA that had no build-up immediately got super attacked for quite a strong super and firmed it for 6k. Them double ball bags are not for show. They're juiced. They're filled, okay? They're filled. And as I said, they had no build-up. None of that 200% attack and defense for being hit was activated. That is just all that damage reduction and guard. I can't wait to see what Turles is doing, because Turles is fully juiced up right now. We've got Brutal Beatdown, Destroyer of the Universe. We've got Big Bad Bosses. We've got both the sidebanner supports going. How are we looking? 22.1? I mean, I don't think Goku lowers, so why is that so low? We're not hitting any additional super attacks either. I mean, maybe it's because at the start of turn we didn't have HP at 50% or more, I don't think. That might be why. Either way, he's still tanking fine, even with type disadvantage. But for every super attack performed, which of course Turles has done at least 5 or 6 plus at the moment, you do get key plus 3 up to 9, which is only 3 super attacks. And damage reduction goes from 10% to 30%. And then you get 8% defense up to 240, which again is only 3 super attacks, which if you're lucky enough, which we were on his first appearance, you can literally do that on turn 1 and he is good to go. Then after you perform 6 attacks in battle, which don't have to be supers, just attacks, which again, we've definitely done, your attacks become effective against all types, and that is permanent, by the way. So if you're facing someone like we are now, where he has type disadvantage, it doesn't matter, he's going to do damage, and he has a guaranteed additional super no matter what, on top of the potential additional supers that he has in his kit anyway. So again, Turles' damage may be misleading, because it might not be the highest on face value, but once he does super attack, if you do get lucky with the RNG, and of course you've got that guaranteed additional one there after 6 attacks in battle, you could potentially be doing a decent amount of combined total damage, which again might not look the best on face value, but regardless, you know, I'm going to pop this just to pop this, but will either way, as I said, come out to some pretty decent total damage. So as I said, it may look a little bit misleading on face value at like high 20 mils, low 30 mils, but when you add them all up, it does combine to a decent amount of damage. So I wouldn't snub his damage too much, especially if you crit along the way, and especially with that attacks effective against all types after 6 attacks in battle, because then, as I said, no matter who you're facing, whether it's type neutral, disadvantage, advantage, Turles is always going to be doing solid amount of damage anyway. And then if you crit along the way with those anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 super attacks, you could do a decent amount of damage to enemies' actual health. But all in all, for a unit that kind of came and gone, because I remember when this guy first released, I even remember doing a whole video basically being like, is Turles as bad as everyone makes out to be? Which I don't think he was. I just think for the content in the game at the time, if I remember rightly, Turles was an okay unit, just wasn't what we needed at the time. So he kind of felt like a waste, hence why he just kind of got brushed under the carpet and just left there for years until Dokkan decided to give him a beefed up EZA, which I'm really glad they did. They've done a really good, can't speak English, a really good job this year, especially with like Raditz, now Turles, etc. It's nice to see him back, especially with the LR, especially with the Dokkan Fest Meta Cooler Army, the Super EZA Final Form Cooler, and then Space Traveling Warriors. Then you've got Terrifying Conquerors, Movie Bosses being in a much, much better spot. And also Int Beerus as well being another one. And Planetary Destruction has had some slight buffs as well with some of these recent EZAs and new units as well. So, I mean, if Dokkan, you want to carry on with those and start leaning into Planetary Destruction, I'm kind of here for it. Now, this rotation is nice because we've got everyone here. We've got the whole squad. The only annoying thing is no big bad bosses, and that is a big link to miss out on. But we do have both the side units support. So Turles is sitting on a 2.5 million attack stat, 1.82 on the defense. But look at both the side banner units. 1.56 attack and 1.97 on Almond and Raisin. And then Days and Cacao have 3.76 million on the attack, 2.2 million on the defense. And they're primarily looking to dodge. Their kit is primarily built around dodge. I'll quickly run through it while we're here. Key +3, 250 attack and defense. An additional attack that's 70% chance to become a super attack. Change strength force to rainbow. For one turn from character century, which of course is now gone because they've been in battle 4 times. Guaranteed additional super, an extra 10% chance to dodge. Then per Space Traveling Warriors or Terrifying Conquerors category ally attacking in the same turn, which the team is pretty much all of. An extra 200% defense and a crit chance and dodge chance of an extra 10%. Then in slot 2 or 3, 200% attack, chance to crit by 50% and 50% chance to dodge as well. And then when attacking, 200% defense. Then for every super attack performed, 50% attack and defense up to 200%. And then finally, when there's another Space Traveling Warriors category ally attacking in the same turn, which the full team is kinda, apart from I think one unit in Goma, guaranteed additional super. And then that's where the support comes in, giving all allies key +2, 30% attack and defense for 2 turns. When there's another Planetary Destruction category ally attacking in the same turn. So, not only did we get an amazing EZA in Turles and great additions to those 3 categories I mentioned, but then also we've got 2 amazing side EZAs that follow him everywhere he goes on those categories. And of course, with the new LR, if you don't have the Fizz one, the LR can help, and then vice versa. But if they're on the same team, even better if you do have both. So, we do have the active skill ready, which can be activated when there is a Goku's family category enemy, or an enemy whose name includes Kid Gohan, starting from the 3rd turn from the earliest, or starting from turn 6 if you are not facing either. So your kind of ore condition, your turn 6, isn't the best. But I mean, we haven't had like really short form content in a while. So it's actually not too bad. Do I want to pop it now? No, I think I'm going to hold on to it. I think I'm going to hold on to it because I want to wait until we get Big Bad Bosses active again. I kind of want to see how these two do in slot 1 because that's 1.97 million defense with guard and what, 65% damage reduction in total. I think as long as they tank it, that's a success, right? As long as they can tank it, or they could dodge, or my dodge build in the dupe system, they could just straight out dodge. Fair. Are these the ones that raise defense on super attack? They are as well. 30% defense for 4 turns. So that's another reason why their defense is so juiced up. Whereas the Days and Cacao are doing 30% attack for 4 turns. How are they going to tank it? This is post-super as well. So surely they're fine, right? Do you know what? I know 520k is a lot to take. However, that's a side EZA. That's coleslaw. That is beans, right? That's the bread you bring to the table. And they only tanked it for just over 500k. I say only like that's a small amount. I mean, teams have quite high HP nowadays. But even so, for a side EZA in slot 1, I'll take it. So it does look like, as I said, at first glance, the type of numbers Turles is putting out is a little bit low. We're not really critting either, which is a bit dead. But if you take all the super attacks he's done, which is like 5 or 6, each of them are over 20 mil. So if you do that, even if you just say we do the latter or we do the former, shall I say, at 5, That's already over 100 mil on a super attack. He's done. So he doesn't have the big, shiny, glossy number of doing like, you know, 60, 70, 80 mil on one super attack and then potentially doing like 70, 80 plus on the second, and that's it. Maybe a third if you have dupes or skill orbs in the hidden potential system, but he's doing multiple over 20 mil to 30 mil super attacks, which is taking him well in excess of over 100 mil. So this is why I say his damage is a bit misleading. And as I said, the attack's effective against all types is going to help him keep doing damage as well, especially when he has type disadvantage like he does now. But what I will say is, if he crits, the amount of total damage he does is pretty solid. As I said, it's just not as exciting as seeing like, oh, 60, 70, 80 mil, big number go boom. But it's loads of little numbers. And, you know, as Asda or Tesco say in the UK, every little helps. Do you know what I mean? If you have pennies and silver coins that add up to £1 instead of just having a shiny pound coin, £1's still £1 at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't really focus or hyper focus on the fact that he's only doing between 20 and 30 mil on a super attack, which, you know, I know at first glance is a bit dead. Do not get me wrong. But if he's super attacking, and I know this is also depending on RNG because he does have 2 chances, 70% chance of an additional super, which of course, if he doesn't proc them and you only super attack like 2, maybe 3 times, it isn't as good, of course. But even then, you're still looking at like, what, over 60, 70 mil, which isn't too bad. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. But if you do get those additional supers pop, as I said, all in all, you're doing like over 100 mil combined on his super attacks. And if he crits along the way, even better. But I do understand why that RNG would jar some people, would annoy some of you. Because as I said, if the super attacks don't pop, his damage output's just kind of okay. And then if he doesn't crit along the way either, even though of course he does have the attacks against all types, which again is still good, it's kind of like, well, you've kind of just tickled Goku's balls and that's really about it. Enough of the foreplay, we want to do some big damage, let's go for it type situation. I get it. You know, the RNG is a little bit meh, but if it does come off, it's actually pretty good. If not, it's Dokkan at the end of the day. RNG is RNG. I've got my big bad bosses link. I've got Turles with some support. I've also got the support from the previous rotation. This is good as the active skill is going to get. He's going to greatly raise attack temporarily, cause ultimate damage to the enemy. I don't actually remember what this is, but let's pop this. Let's do some damage, and then we'll round out this video.
You know what this is? A move. Burst open and mix! Now, let me see your true form.
Some pretty solid damage, you know. That's actually not bad, considering he didn't hit a crit or anything. But again, that's attacks effective against all types. That's actually pretty solid. I completely forgot. He basically grabs Gohan and is like, yeah, cool. We're going to do this. We've also got cooler support as well for movie bosses. So Turles is kind of chilling right now. Yeah, 2.6 million of defense. That's even before supering, and then well over 12 mil before we've even super attacked on this time. We've also got a Dokkan attack as well. So let's see. Final rotation. Turles is juiced up to fuck. He's got the almond and raisin support. He's got the days and cacao support from last turn. He's got support from Cooler. We've also just died. That's fine. I'm not gonna lie, I thought they were gonna be okay. That's a little bit anticlimactic, but it's all good. I mean, he literally probably would have done like just over 30 mil if we're being completely honest. But in terms of Turles, while as I said, his damage might not look as appealing at first glance, if you do get the RNG for the additional supers, he's doing pretty good, solid damage all in all. Especially if you do crit along the way. The attacks being effective against all types are good. He tanks really well as well. Good amount of damage reduction. This is a unit, as I said, which kind of just came and gone when he was released in 2023. And now he's on one of the strongest teams in the game. And if you have the full team with Cooler, Super EZA Cooler, the 2-side EZAs, him, the LR, etc., etc., you're having yourself, as I said, one of the strongest teams in the game. And of course, he's juiced up quite a bit from the 2-side EZAs, who are also really, really good as well. Big fan of those. Dokkan has hit 3 for 3. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments on all of those EZAs. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care, have a great day, and peace.